Okay, kejap let me just ensure. Okay, so it is being recorded. Alright, so let me just walk you through. Browse je balik. Okay, so I hope everyone has gone through the recording. And trust me, you cannot go through all the recording at one go. Okay, so once I give it, just go through it at your own time. Malam ke ataupun the time that you have in between. So, but make sure you finish the recording within the same week of teaching. Okay, so I think I have from here. Okay, so just in a glass, in terms of management skill, these are the three main skill that we usually how to say, we need to have it. Okay, so technical, people, conceptual. So I don't need to discuss detail because I mentioned in the class, in the recording, whereby conceptual, it is essential for someone at a higher position. Okay, and technical, it is required more at a lower position. Okay, so position in a sense that managerial position to non-managerial position. Okay, so that you need to know. People skill, it is required, but as you go higher, it will be required more, because when you're talking about people, you're talking about communication, you're talking about delivering the information, and to ensure that people could gauge your information and they can follow you. Okay, so that's the idea. Sebab sometimes you might have like brilliant idea in your mind. Okay, so you would think that, wow, the idea is brilliant. Tapi if you can't convey it properly, and if you can't influence people to actually agree with your opinion, then dia tak jadi apalah. Okay, so it wouldn't be it wouldn't be anything, because your idea is just your idea. Okay, so it might be brilliant, but you need to convey it in a way that you can get people to respond well to you. Okay, so that is important. That's why people skill is important, because your idea, your opinion, it should be properly delivered and influential. That's the idea. Okay, so that's why sometimes bila kita lontarkan idea, make sure that um the other party can understand. So how? Your idea cannot be cloudy. Your mind cannot be cloudy. If you're cloudy, it's like macam you are saying A but B but C but D, and people will be like, what? Okay, so make sure that when you are trying to deliver any message, it should be, how to say, the word to properly narrated lah. Okay, so something like that. Okay, so these are just managers by area. You guys dah tengok. And the role, okay, so the role as an informer, the role as an interpersonal, and also decisional. Okay, so characteristic, I think is fine, and the technical skill. Okay, so I think this is straightforward. Kejap, I did not present tadi. Patutlah. How come you guys didn't tell me that I did not even I did not present? Okay. Okay, so the following part, okay, we did touch on the theory. Okay, the classical theory. So I did mention that the evolution starts from such a way. Okay, scientific, which focus on small jobs. Okay, so to improve certain jobs, and then Henry Fayol at the second phase, that thinks that improvement to administration would enhance the productivity. And then kemudiannya they are talking a lot on the people itself, the human itself. Okay, so how the behavior of human could actually influence productivity. Okay, so there are people who are meant to be working on floor level. There are people with certain characteristic could be a good manager. Okay, so theory X, theory Y. Often affect pula into behavior of people. So how we behave. So simply said, if someone is watching you from the back, Okay, so your laptop akan penuh lah educational material. However, when someone is not watching you from the back, probably there are a lot of other websites you go into. So it is typical human behavior. Okay, so Taylor, these are the things. So I did mention just now, you don't need to memorize, but you need to visualize and get the understanding, okay, what he's trying to do. Okay, so and during that time I did mention dia between feudal and baru nak start into a lot of growing in factories and so on and locomotives. So people are in quite a chaotic manner because you are like pertanian tiba-tiba perindustrian. So there would be a transition yang quite difficult. So that's why a lot of theories came out during this period of time. Okay, so scientific is in improving the work. Okay, and then Henry Fayol in terms of administration. So I did describe all of this. Okay, so you might that's why I did you don't need to memorize, but you need to at least know how it works. Okay, unity of command tu apa, so unity of direction tu apa. So if you memorize, once you buat test tu, you will not be able to you know get you wouldn't be able to gauge dia punya tu. So try to understand it. Alton Mayer, it goes into the human factor already. Okay, so Horton effect, X and Y and Z, that includes also Japanese concept, Japanese theory, which is a lot to do with trust, loyalty, and so on. And finally, we have this Maslow's hierarchy. Okay, so Maslow's hierarchy is the hierarchy that that actually was being used to see what motivates people. Okay, so Maslow's hierarchy. And we are done on that chapter. Okay, so I suppose there are no questions from that.
No.
Okay, so if no, I would assume that you understand it pretty well, and we move on to the second chapter. Okay, so the second chapter is basically on history of project management. Okay, so it will go on to, hold on Okay, so for this, basically the learning outcome will be actually is still the same. CO1, PO1 if I'm not mistaken, or PO3, CO1, PO3. Okay, so at the end of this lesson, you should be able to recognize the history, the current development in project management, discuss the overview of project management, the characteristics of a project, and understand the project management benefits and trade-off. You must understand this trade-off very well. Okay, so I will discuss that in further with you. Okay, so talking about project management. Okay, so the concept of project management has been around since the beginning of history. Okay, so you can see a lot of Roman structures, you can see all those pyramids, but to say that it is a project, maybe it is not that suited in comparison to what we mean by project nowadays. Okay, so when we are talking about project nowadays, we are saying about something which is within a time frame. Okay, within a certain resources given. Okay, allocated funding, allocated resources, and there should be a temporary structure or temporary organization, people working for that. Okay, so usually when we mention anything about project, that is a project. Okay, so projects are there are a lot of different types of project. Okay, so we have so many sectors. Okay, so we have sectors that contributes to the nation's growth. Okay, so typically the most highest contributing sector would be, okay, I'll ask this question. What is the sector that contributes the highest to our economy, to the GDP or gross domestic product of Malaysia? Which sector that contributes the highest? The highest contribution lah maksudnya in terms of economy to the country. Mana?
Construction.
Construction. Okay. Other answers? Which are the sector that actually contributes highest to our GDP? Other answer than construction?
Agriculture.
Agriculture lagi?
Tourism.
Tourism lagi? What else?
Manufacturing.
Manufacturing. Okay. Other than that?
Service.
Service. Okay. Lagi? So I think more or less kita covered lah. Okay. The highest contributor will be service. Okay, so services. So why? Because services actually dia ada banyak anak-anak dia. Okay, tourism is under services. Okay, and then we have healthcare, medical, kita ada medical tourism, and then banking, financing, telecommunication, so hotel, a lot under services. Okay, so that's why services contribute the highest, tinggilah percentage dia. Okay, and then we are followed by manufacturing as one of you guys have mentioned. Okay, manufacturing, and then followed by more or less between oil and gas, agricultural pun kita ada. Okay, fishery, apa lagi? Logging, pembalakan. Okay, construction. So construction sebenarnya how many percent? Is only sikit je. Actually we are one of the lowest contributor to the GDP. Around sekarang 6%. So previously a couple of years ago is around 4% je. So meaning to say that in terms of GDP, okay, we contribute profit lah, economy, we contribute around 6% je. Dia tak banyak. Okay, so construction is one of the lowest. Why? Because one of the main, we don't export our services banyak. So we don't have a lot of our consultant or a lot of our contractor getting job overseas and so on. So we do not export. Manufacturing, we export. Okay, but tourism as well, or services, we export our services, but at the same time, we have this spending within the country and so on. So construction, we actually do not contribute in that sense, in that GDP. Tapi, in construction, we are the enabler. Okay, so we are the catalyzer for other sectors to be active, to be alive basically. Okay, so without construction, there are no factories and so on. Without construction, the product from the factory, for example, let's say piles, okay, piling or bricks or cement, so those things are not being utilized. So actually, even though it does not show in the GDP, tapi we enable other sectors to move. Okay, so that's why construction is very, very, very important, because without us, the other sectors could not perform lah basically, tak ada structure and so on. Cuma when we are talking about construction, a lot actually dwells around a mega project. Okay, whenever a government spends money on building for public, okay, so highway or whatsoever was not, okay, spending on what you call public infrastructure, that will contribute to the GDP as well. Okay, so I think that one we'll discuss in the following chapter. Okay, but anyhow, coming back here, when we talk about project besides construction, okay, so we have projects something like IT. Okay, so software development is a project, because when you are developing a certain software, there are certain criteria by the client, and there are certain funding given by the client. And of course, when you are developing a software, there are certain time frame. Tak adalah you give the job after 3 years baru you dapat the software, so it's already obsolete. So different sectors would have something that associated with them of the nature of project. Construction is definitely a project. So one of the biggest project in sectors are basically from construction. Okay, so because our project, when you're talking about project, it is quite huge in amount. Okay, so huge in physically and huge also in terms of costing. All right. For manufacturing, their project might be, for example, to design a new car, for example. So that might be a certain project. So that might be a certain time frame allocated untuk build a car, okay, or to design a car prototype and so on. Okay, so but going back to this Egyptian pyramids, so we do not really like this like between project no project, because each pyramid, for example, takes 22 years. Okay, so the time is too long, and the funding is maybe it can be anything, because those days are the slavery, you have slave, and then the monetary is not an issue, now is an issue. So probably we want to call it project pun is a bit difficult sebab the attributes does not reflect like a project. Okay, but however, put in perspective, kita adalah something like that. Okay, and right, so those days basically they have a massive funding. Okay, so material had to be managed, coordinated, but cuma their time frame is long lah kan. Okay, so many years, decades. Okay, so with the start of Industrial Revolution, the need of business industry became more complicated and often grew in scale. Okay, so there is a proper need to manage budget, supplies, labor, and so on. Okay, so that's the reason that it reflects also chapter sebelum ni. Okay, so from the start of Industrial Revolution, there are requirement, or there are things that we need to manage well. Okay, so it becomes management skill and so on. Okay, okay, the next one. Okay, so these are just the amphitheater in Rome and the pyramids. Okay, so the history basically in the US, the forefather of project management is Henry Gunn. Okay, so if you look into the name Henry Gunn too, you should know that we are still using whatever he has produced during that time. Okay, so during World War One, so we are still using the Gantt chart. Okay, so basically Gantt chart macam ni. So yeah, if you have visited, if you have done your LI in your diploma, you should be able, or you should have gone through what is Gantt chart. Okay, so a Gantt chart is basically the activities and also the associated duration for the activities. Okay, so it has been produced way long ago, and when he designed developed this thing, it was like for a lot during war. Okay, and a lot of this project management when we look into this precedence diagram, CPM, and similar tools as such, it was used to actually manage war during that time. Okay, so tool ni basically enable him to see the big picture, analyze the functions. Okay, so it's a tool that has been used since those days until now. Okay. Okay, so around 1950s considered the beginning of modern project management. Okay, and Russia led in missile technology. So you can see that in terms of modern project management, it started during the war. Okay, and project management program called PERT. Okay, program evaluation and review device by two. So PERT is actually one of the tool that was based on network diagram. This group, are you from matriculation ke diploma? Diploma
Diploma.
Diploma. Okay. So if you are from diploma, I suppose you can still remember CPM, critical path method. Ingat lagi tak? In your diploma, I suppose you should have touched on critical path method. Okay. So critical path method is where you have the network diagram, you calculate, you have the duration for each activity, you can calculate the total duration. PERT is using CPM, cuma when we are talking about PERT, it evaluates 3 different duration. Okay, so there are 3 duration that looks into probability lah. Okay, so there are duration of most optimistic duration, which is the shortest, the most applicable duration, which is the medium length, and also the most pessimistic duration, which is the longest duration for each activity. So dia ada statistical analysis sikit for PERT ni. Okay, so cuma we don't use PERT that much nowadays lah. Rarely that we use PERT sebenarnya. Okay, and during 1960s pula, okay, so nothing much. Okay, so apply to business methodology, yang tu tak ada apalah. Okay, and around 1969 that we have PMI. Okay, so Project Management Institute. So this institute, they have what do you call, branches all over the world. Okay, so for Malaysia, we have the branch in, previously was in UTMKL, if I'm not mistaken. So it is still standing strong, and especially for why is it important? One of the things that they do is basically to endorse or to, how to say, to certify project managers. Okay, so this is the certifying body for project manager. Cuma the cost for taking the examination is quite expensive. Okay, so for example, for engineers, right? Okay, so if you are civil engineer or whatsoever engineer, once you graduate, you will be able to what do you call, register with the board of engineer, okay, as a graduate engineer. But however, as an engineer, you are not a project manager. Okay, but how do we certify that, okay, that person is a certified project manager? So it is not by EAC, it is not by the QS board, it is not by the architect board, it is by the Project Management Institute. Cuma Project Management Institute is not how to say, is not a governing body. So it is just an institute macam IEM. Okay, Institute of Engineers Malaysia. It's like an NGO basically. NGO ke? Probably not NGO, but it's not a governing body. So which means it is not government based. Okay, so board is government based. Okay, so it's registered under the board, and there are acts for it. So cuma Project Management Institute ni is whereby, for example, if I'm a civil engineer, okay, and I have been involved in project management for a couple of years, and I think I want to get accredited or get certified as a project manager, I would go with them. Okay, I will go into their website, and there is a certain fees to be paid and take the examination. Okay, so once pass the examination, then usually they will be granting you the project management. So where you can use it, normally nama kita, okay, Sheila Bella Yudam, kat belakang tu we can put in PMP, Project Management Professional. So that is project manager. So for engineers, do we necessary to have this? Unless you might have been working for 10 years plus and you think that you want to be certified, then you can go for it. Because as an engineer, we have governing body, and as an engineer, if you want to move further, then you apply for professional engineer and so on. Cuma this one is applicable for someone who wants to be certified as project manager. Okay, particularly untuk the one macam degree from FSPU. Okay, so they have degree like Bachelor Science in Construction Management. So maybe with this certification, there would have the, you know, a bit of an edge lah compared to someone yang tak ada certification ni. Cuma the fees quite mahal lah. Okay, alright, so the premise of PMI is that the tools, techniques of project management are common, okay, even among the widespread application. So why this institute is important, another thing besides the certification is they created this, okay, a guide to the project management body of knowledge. So if you look into this guidebook, it will tell you the processes for project management in general. So it will not specify in construction macam mana, in software macam mana. No, it will be a general input. What are the input documents required for project definition, for example, and what are the project outcome. Okay, so basically it provides a guidance in terms of common tools. Okay, so long if it's a project, you can use this guide. Okay, whether it's from construction ke IT ke, it doesn't matter. But so long it's a project, then this book could be used. It actually is a very thin book. It's not like a thick encyclopedia type of book. So it's a very thin book, and those book basically could just give you a guide je. Okay, so what are the common input and so on. So it will not go detailed than that, because if they go detailed than that, it will be too industry specific. Okay, so it will be general je. Next. Okay, so next will be project management nowadays. So what are we talking about? How is the project management nowadays? It is getting much more complicated. It is getting much more complex because of one, globalization, second, because of the technology advancements. Of course, the technology comes from the globalization. If let's say industry 4.0 started in the Germany, without globalization, without the the network that actually allow us to know what is happening, then kita tak adalah follow industry 4.0, then we'll just remain where we are lah. Okay, so obviously globalization helped to elevate the importance of project management, since many companies are expanding or are setting up, but also with globalization that all this knowledge transfer, technological transfer happens. Okay, so hence we have the need for new, more sophisticated tool to accomplish complicated project management functions. Okay, that has actually evolved through design and manufacture of web-based project management software. Okay, so you can see that those were the days that your software semua tu we need to download from, or we need to install it using Drive. Okay, or during using CD. Printer lah, simple. Okay, so those were the days that you have this CD, then you plug in or play it in your laptop, and then it will get installed for you. But nowadays, your laptop pun, I don't think you would have a CD player. Okay, so most of the things or most of the software could be downloaded from the web itself. Okay, so to be honest, when we talk about project management nowadays, it is pretty challenging. Okay, so not only in terms of the technological, it is also in terms of people. So people are getting more sophisticated, especially when you have access to knowledge. Okay, so especially client. So when client have access to knowledge, client could actually look into different alternative. So sometimes changes happen. So one huge how to say, one huge challenge during construction ialah if there are changes by the client. So that is one of the thing that could delay the project, that could have a major consequences. Cuba sometimes client would have their thoughts, itu yang jadi susah tu. So it will be hard on the designer. So if there are changes happening during construction. Okay, and projects have been managed for as long as there has been project management term only 35, I would say with 2021 more than that lah. Okay, so more or less similar to the time where PMI has been established. Cuma the term tu when it started to be used, so maybe around 1970s, 1969, 70s. Okay, all right. So far, any question?
No.
No, okay. So overview of project management. Okay, so one definition of a project is a series of activities. So when you talk about project, there must be activities. Okay, activities are resource centric. So which means when you mention the word activity, it needs to have resources. Okay, so activities undertaken by a group of people intended to achieve a certain result. Okay, so therefore all construction activities are project. Okay, cuma when you are talking about built environment or real estate, okay, so construction is definitely a project. Maintenance work, okay, so facilities maintenance is not a project because it's routine. Okay, so every month there are requirement to service. Okay, so services of aircon ke. So those are in routine. Maintenance is not a project. For example, painting job is not a project. Tapi if even if you're talking about something emergency, okay, let's say your roof collapse, okay, and you need to repair it, it's not a project. It was not intended with a certain result and with a certain resource and so on. It was based from emergency. So when you're talking about project, it should have well intended aim. Okay, so there should be a properly defined structure, defined resources. You know what is the reason for the project to be undertaken and so on. Okay, so construction is a project. Facility management, maintenance, repair job is not a project. Okay. Okay, so research activities. Okay, so especially academics. Okay, so in the university we have a lot of research activities. Those are project because we are given certain grant for a certain period of time and we are allowed to take in a GRA or RA. So research activity is a project. Any product development is a project, okay, or any one of engineering activities is a project. Okay, and other than that, military activities. Okay, so you can't go into a war like forever unless you want it to be forever. So when it was in World War One, World War Two, there was a certain period. Okay, so military activities, and there are what do you call, certain notion to it. Okay, government initiative, it is a project. Okay, so usually if you have new minister, there would be new policy and that will be a time frame for us to actually implement such policy and so on. Okay, and others lah, or legal cases. If you are conducting any conference, okay, so big social event, conference, because conference basically you plan for it to happen to a certain period of time. Tapi to reach that event too, there are a lot of activities. So big social events, and of course also all premeditated crime. Okay, so if you watch CI, kalau Astro tu, so you can see a lot of crimes which are actually premeditated. Okay, so crime can be happen just as such, especially if there are case ragut macam tu. Okay, so that might be premeditated, might be just a crime of opportunity. Okay, so you nampak opportunity untuk do such a thing, then you just do it. Or if you like premeditated. Okay, so other things lah. Okay, all right, so includes all deliberate creation of things undertaken by group of people. Next, okay, so I think this one tak penting sangat lah. The rate of increase in the number of project has increased due to rapid scientific, technical, political development. Okay, okay, yang ni tak penting sangat, this slide. Okay, so when we are talking about changes in project management, okay, those days and now, what are the changes? Okay, so some of the changes are stated here. Number one, we are becoming more concerned with the soft technique and less with the hard technique. Okay, so we are looking into a lot of in terms of IT, we are looking into a lot of the use of BIM. Okay, so everyone pernah dengar BIM kan? I just write it down in case you did not. Do not, alamak, I cannot edit from here. So BIM is basically building information modeling. Okay, so those are basically 3D model, how to say, 3D models on the computer. Okay, so you can actually move from 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D, 7D, depends on what you intend it to be. Okay, so those days we design it, okay, in the computer, tapi lepas tu we use a lot of print it out, look into the 2D drawing and then baru we build. Okay, so usually those days are where you can see engineers carrying the 2D drawing. Okay, so buka besar-besar, go to the site and basically to send a message. Okay, what are the reinforcement bar here and there. So from the 2D drawing, you can see 3D on site. Tapi moving forward, okay, so you might see engineers rather than holding paper in 2D, they might be just having a tablet, okay, so or a or a simple computer, okay, or simple laptop or handphone basically, okay, so whereby the drawings, the models are in there, and from there that they can actually instruct the site personnel. Okay, so it involves a lot on soft technique, okay, so softwares and so on. So it would be, and also when we are talking about soft technique, okay, those were the days kita hanya 2D je. Okay, so for example, when you are drawing a beam, so you kena draw line by line. Okay, so the length of line from here, line from here, line from here to draw a beam. But now with 3D beam software, okay, such as the most common one they use is Revit. Okay, so not about selling whatsoever, but Revit is the most common one. What do you call? Developed by Autodesk. Okay, or else yang lain adalah either Autodesk or Bentley or Graphisoft. Okay, so those are basically some of the companies who actually produce BIM software. Okay, so Revit is one of it. So nowadays, when you're trying to design a BIM, you can just have the what do you call item there. Okay, so a BIM. So it would generate a beam rather than you have to draw a beam on every single line and so on. Okay, so much faster. And when you put it in 3D, okay, what happened is you can actually put it in 4D. 4D itu apa? Basically 3D is the model. Okay, so you can look into the 3D in different angle. You can even walk into the building. Okay, so that you have actually designed, provided that you have designed it properly. So provided the architect has actually installed, okay, table kat sini, chair kat sini. So they can actually incorporate semua tu from the library, BIM library. So once you have 3D, but let's say you want to have 4D. 4D ialah the incorporation of schedule. Okay, so whether your schedule is from Microsoft Project ke, whether you have developed it in Primavera ke, so from the 3D, join in the schedule, you can actually look into the construction of the building. So if you look into some YouTube, they have this time frame. Week 1, what are the progression? Week 2, what are the progression? Because you dah ada dah this 3D model and you have activities for each of the element. Ground slab, maybe day 1 to 2, so and so on. So you can see the 4D model in building. So that would be 4D. So 5D sometimes would be when you are looking at 4D time frame and also 5D in terms of cost. Okay, so QS might want to have a 5D model. So with the costing. And then you might have 6D, 7D, tapi for BIM, too much susah is quite difficult for a computer to actually handle. Okay, so you might include green elements in 6D, you might include other things in 7D. So safety 7D and so on. But that would be too much lah. So biasanya they would say just concentrate on 1, 2 function and so on. Maybe 4D or 5D. Okay. So those are the changes, and the changes are pretty rampant nowadays. Okay, so banyak. So one of the way that you can actually increase your odds of getting a job, okay, it's by learning BIM software. Okay, so that one you are like a hotcake. Okay, so we did conduct I think FSPU conducted BIM training and they invited us to nominate students. I think past berapa lama ya, I think 2018 or 2019. So we did nominate a few students who attended the training for 2 weeks if I'm not mistaken. And once they complete their studies, they get job very fast. Okay, so that's why when we are talking about undergraduate, every university is having the same syllabus. Okay, so as us, maybe difference pun mungkin daripada segi elective and so on, tapi daripada segi in general, because all the universities are governed by ESC. So the credit are similar, the subject is more or less the same. So except that maybe elective. Cuma how you can sell yourself, not sell yourself, how you can actually promote yourself better or having that extra edge compared to the others, ialah your skill. Okay, so you can say that you have skill in developing a BIM model. So how can you do that? If I'm not mistaken, if you join or if you log in into Autodesk, there are student, you can register as student, okay, and you can actually download in terms of student what they call student copy. So of course when you print tu dia ada lah for educational purposes. Cuma they have a lot of free training inside there. Okay, so Bentley ke Autodesk, so those are the things that you can actually enroll yourself, learn, and usually diorang ni, if they have these courses, they have this batch. Batch 2, you can put it in your CV. You can say that you have completed batch untuk level 1 BIM, for example, level 1 BIM modeling. So those are the things you can collect to increase your odds in landing a job after your completion. Okay, so soft technique ni. And as a student, if I'm not mistaken, it's free lah. Okay, but dia cuma dia dalam bentuk educational punya tu. So, but I think is good. So if you have the time, that I would suggest you look into BIM software and try to learn some of the its thing. And if you can't do, YouTube banyak. There are so many YouTubes teaching you how to use a BIM software. And if you to one point you are quite well versed with that, please put in your CV. So you will have edge compared to the others. Okay, and a lot of times biasanya BIM tu is just learning by yourself, especially if you are IT the people who actually quite good with IT. I think you get it easier lah. Okay, so soft technique. Hard techniques are those that we are talking about, drawing in hard copy and so on. Okay, all right, next point. Okay, so from predictable model to unpredictable. Okay, so why? Because those were the days young client might know is what the designer say, it will be followed easily. Cuma now when the clients are having a lot of resources in hand, it changes happen. Okay, so it makes it much more difficult. Okay, so project clients usually will not change their mind, but however nowadays with the the information at hand, then mind they could easily change their mind. Okay, and also being from predictable to unpredictable. Okay, so when this situation predictable to unpredictable, it creates unstable model. Okay, so whereby your construction could involve changes. Okay, and then development continues, program management. So basically there are a lot of type of management. So those were the days that we only talk about certain management, but nowadays banyak, especially when you talk about safety and health management aside and so on. Okay, so risk management aside and so on. Okay, change management is where you would imply this, especially when the client have changes. How do you want to manage if the client changes at certain period of time? So you need to have a proper process to manage it. Okay, and then interest in managing interfaces from adversarial to allies. Okay, construction is one of the industry yang you susah nak dapat ally. Okay, so because it is very adversarial, especially if you walk into construction client consultant meeting. So everyone berjaga-jaga. Okay, so if there are delay, that party will blame this party and this party will in return blame this party. So you can see that there are quite chaotic, especially if you enter a construction client consultant meeting, contractor meeting. So why? Because everyone is taking care of their own personal interests. So and that is how construction is basically, as particularly when we are talking about procurement system traditional. design, bid, build. Okay, so client, consultant, contractor. But now moving forward is where we want a procurement system, or we are actually in the midst of transitioning into procurement system, which are more as a partner. Okay, so partnering, alliance. So where we share profit, and if there are losses, we share losses. Tapi cuma itulah in Malaysia, I think it is still we are not there yet in terms of from adversarial to allies. So, but a lot of developed countries are actually moving towards this because they understand that when you're in a project, it is teamwork. Okay, so benda tu penting lah. But I think probably I will talk in detail lagi in the next class. Okay, so about that. Itu je. Okay, alright. So I think we'll stop here. Changes in project management. Okay, so in the next class, we'll touch on overview of project management. Okay, so far, any question tak on this? Let me just close the sharing. Any question on this? No, eh? Okay. Alright, so if no, kita dah 3-1. Can I just take 1 or 2 minutes just to get some of you to ask me questions similar to the last class? Okay, Mr. Danish. Mr. Danish Ashraf, ada ke?
Yes, I'm here.
Alright, good. Mr. Danish, can you just give us one question to represent? Think.
Is any kind of questions? It's okay.
Any kind of question tapi related lah dengan what we have gone through.
So are we going to learn about CPM in this class?
Oh yeah, simple question. Of course we will. Tapi bukan CPM. Because you guys have gone
what will
through.
be the difference?
There will be a difference between CPM dengan precedence. It's similar, it is still network analysis, cuma precedence is more flexible. So that one will be in chapter 4. So precedence dia jauh lebih flexible compared to CPM. Sebab CPM, a lot of it finish to start.
Yes.
In construction, we can't wait for everything to finish baru nak start. Impossible. So normally we would start with a certain lag and so on. So that will be the one we will be doing in chapter 4 nanti.
So it will be more detailed, right?
It will be more detailed, it will be more functional, it will be more flexible daripada CPM. Sebab CPM rigid. You cannot wait for all the activity habis baru you nak start. Bila nak siap? So that's why precedence, it allows you to start together. Start with a certain lag period. So that will be the difference lah. So CPM no, but I will just run through the difference between CPM dengan precedence diagram.
Alright, thank you.
Okay. Alright, thank you for the question. Let's select one more before we end the class. Let's select a girl. Nur Iza Atira, Miss Nur Iza Atira. Nur Iza. Yes, okay. One question, please. Nur Iza, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, just throw us one question. First one.
For now, I don't have any question, Doctor.
Okay lah, I will give you guys this time. Okay, so next time I will just call in any name. You guys must have something in your mind. Okay, so at least we have some question and answer, it will be better. Okay, so every class we will end up with 2 questions at the end of the day. So I'll pick any name. So hopefully I tak redundant lah. So I will pick any name and you have question in mind. And then we'll go to the question. Okay? Tak ada question lain? Okay, if no, we'll end the class here. Okay, so thank you everyone for your attention. I'll see you next week. Okay.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay,
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor.